Hello, and welcome to the Collapse Experiment. I don't know why I'm feeling congested all of a sudden. Um, there is not a whole lot of news, but big major news that is going on. Maybe that'll help the sound be better. So to get started, let's first go to food shortages loom as Chinese farmers face trouble amid pandemic. Okay, so this was a story I came across last night, and it's from the Epoch Times. You can also find it at thecollapseexperiment.com. Jilin province in China has announced that efforts will continue to ensure that spring plowing continues despite a province-wide COVID-19 lockdown. We're seeing the same crap that we had 2 years ago. It's what's happening. Remember here in the U.S. when farmhands were and harvesters were testing positive for COVID, and they'd shut down the farm, and everything would just rot in the fields. However, online videos show police interrupting farmers working in the fields throughout China, fearing the delay in spring plowing could lead to a food shortage. Analysts say the crisis is beyond fallow fields. Viable seeds and fertilizers are the real crisis Chinese farmers are facing. Okay, so they are what? 1.2 billion? What is it 1.4 now? They're in the billions, okay? There's like 4 times the amount of Chinese people as there are Americans. So this is no joke when it comes to them. Lockdown threatens food supply. It's the same thing. Seed crisis may lead to food shortage. This is in the same article. Liu is a Chinese journalist who requested anonymity. He believes the lack of viable seeds is more serious than the restrictions during lockdown. He said seeds and fertilizer are the two main things for spring plowing, but China's viable grain seeds come in at a high price. The farmers no longer keep the good seeds from previous harvests like in the old days. Yeah, thanks, Monsanto. Foreign companies control the technology of the seeds that come into China. Well, kind of nailed that one on the head. Yeah, in 2020, fake seeds led to no harvest in 279-acre field involving 40 farmers in Inner Mongolia. Fake seeds. Without pesticides and fertilizers, there's no productivity in the Chinese soil. I believe in the food crisis in China. I believe that the food crisis in China will become more prominent in 2 to 3 years. No. I think it's. I think this coming winter is probably going to be the big one. If China's already having issues trying to plant for this spring, if they're already having, see, the government of China is buying anything they can get their hands on when it comes to food, but yet cities like Shanghai are already having food shortages. Granted, a lot of that has to do with the lockdown that they're going through, but when people are screaming that they're literally starving in their apartments, we know food's going in, but if they're not allowed to leave, who is that food going to? The whole thing doesn't make any sense. There's trucks going in with food. They're taping the doors shut, saying that the truckers can't leave the cab of the truck, otherwise they might get COVID. They're unloading, but if people can't leave their apartments to go get the food, what good is the food doing anyone? So yeah, there's definitely some issues in Shanghai right now, and they're expanding the lockdowns. So actually, let's see more about that. I'm going to skip some of this for the very end. Um, let's see here. Yeah, European companies plead China to revise COVID zero as Beijing vows stronger policies to reverse economic collapse. That kind of goes against the article that we just looked at. So this is by Zero Hedge. Um, This is more about economic policies than it is. And they show a bunch of charts about stocks and bonds and whatnot. Chinese effective lockdown index. Uh, the country's outgoing premier told local officials that China will study and adopt stronger economic policies as needed. And needed they are because, according to Li, downward pressure on the economy is increasing and it is part of an international and domestic change that are beyond expectations. Um, Lee urged stabilizing employment, consumer prices, and keeping the economy in reasonable range. The premier also said that China must stabilize the economy via better implementation of existing macroeconomic policy, urged local officials to accelerate release of coal capacity, ensure transportation and port operations. This seems to go against all the things that the World Economic Forum and the eco warriors are wanting. So basically, it looks like a bunch of European companies who are probably in bed with China, just like a lot of the U.S. is, are freaking out because they're losing so much money due to their COVID policies. And looks like this guy Lee is wanting to reverse that, but it's basically going back to what was happening before COVID. COVID lockdowns have caused significant disruptions for many companies, and Beijing should look to Singapore as a model to spur economic growth. Singapore? Wow. I was not expecting that. 51% of German companies, logistics and warehousing, and 46% of their supply chains are completely disrupted or severely impacted by China's COVID situation. Um, I can say we're experiencing the same thing here. Where I work, we can't get car parts at all. We have junk trucks that are sitting in the parking lot waiting to be crushed, and the mechanic is going out and taking off whatever parts he can salvage, which, from my understanding, is a big no-no. Yeah, so Europe is freaking out about COVID policies in China, and what else do we have here? Biden infuriates environmentalists, oil refiners by allowing more ethanol and gas to lower prices. That also lowers your miles per gallon. Ethanol is not as economic as people seem to think that it is. Might explain why my tank is dwindling down so fast. In his latest attempt to ease the relentless pain at the pump, President Biden has pulled off something remarkable. Okay, who wrote this? Wow, this is actually from Zero Hedge. He's managed to infuriate climate activists and the oil and gas industry while jacking up demand for America's most vital agricultural commodity, corn. How many millions of acres are we no longer growing? And we're not, if we're turning corn into ethanol instead of, I don't know, animal feed, half the crap that's in the food in the supermarket, if we're using that for gas. Okay, the president is set to announce Tuesday during a visit to an ethanol plant in a remote town in Iowa that the EPA will eliminate restrictions on high ethanol content gasoline to be sold during the summer months. The decision hasn't yet been confirmed, but senior administration sources have leaked the news to the Wall Street Journal and a handful of other media outlets. The administration officials say the decision could save as much as 10 cents off the price of a gallon of gasoline. Woo! Which is roughly the same impact they had estimated for Biden's latest SPR release, although the investment banks immediately projected that it would likely send oil prices higher, not lower. My God. So yeah, he's let's see what these tweets have to say. I've been calling for this for months as gas prices continue to rise. I hope the president will take this badly needed step to help consumers and our rural economy. Um, I think it's just another. They're just putting band aids on band aids at this point. 34% US corn goes to ethanol. Pretty insane when you consider the world's careening towards a global food crisis. Thank you, Nathan Carson on Twitter. Yep. Isn't that weird? So, if 34% already goes towards ethanol, according to this guy, and we're upping the amount of ethanol that's going in the gasoline, that means a lot more corn is going to be processed. The other stupid thing about ethanol is that there's more energy that goes into the production of this fuel source than the amount of energy that you get out of it afterwards. Um, that was something that they discovered during the Bush administration, and I'm pretty damn sure that hasn't changed at all. Um, it's a fairly stupid system, if you ask me, when it comes to because you're burning other things that you could be using in order to produce more of this other substance that you get less energy out of. It's something the government would invest in. So yay, maybe you'll save 10 cents. Ugh. And let's get to the biggie. Russian chemical weapons in Ukraine could see NATO troops deployed. That statement's coming from the Ukraine. But I'm going to go back to what I saw last night. Let's see here, U.S. News. Yeah, this is one of the early articles that I found last night while just before I went to bed. Reports of Russian chemical weapons use in Ukraine deeply concerning, Pentagon says. I'm only hesitant to believe this because it's coming from the Pentagon. Russia's reported use of chemical weapons in Ukraine, first identified by far-right Ukrainian military regiment, would represent a game changer for Western involvement. Gee, what was it that Biden said would be the red line? The Pentagon on Monday expressed alarm about reports as yet unconfirmed that Russian forces loyal to President Vladimir Putin. Is this guy getting paid by the word? Like, Russian forces. Just say Russian forces. Are there more than one group of Russian forces, and are they taking orders from anyone other than Vladimir Putin? It's just freaking annoying when I read stories like this. Employed chemical weapons against Ukrainian troops in the besieged city of Mariupol. A move that, if true, would represent a major shift in the conflict there and Western involvement in it. The supposed use of some sort of toxin aerosol dropped from a drone apparently operated by Russian forces. Didn't we just give Ukraine a bunch of drones? Just saying. Uh, let's see here. Was first reported by the far right Azov Azov Regiment. I don't know why I can't. I guess I'm just not a good white supremacist. One of the elements of the Ukraine's armed forces operating in the key port city that has come under devastating and indiscriminate Russian shelling in recent weeks, the regiment reported late Monday that nearby troops subsequently had trouble breathing. We are aware of social media reports that claim Russian forces deployed a potential chemical munition in Mariupol, Ukraine. We cannot confirm at this time and will continue to monitor the situation closely. Defense Department spokesman John Kirby said in an emailed statement to the U.S. News. These reports, if true, are deeply concerning and reflective of concerns that we have had about Russia's potential to use the variety of riot control agents, including tear gas mixed with chemical agents in Ukraine. Aren't these the same assholes that said we completely made up the possibility that Russia might use chemical weapons and we had zero information, zero proof that they were moving stuff into the country to possibly use it? And then the media was claiming, but this is a good thing, right? Like, I mean, we should be even if they're not even thinking about using it, we should be concerned that they might be thinking about using it. Type bullshit. I don't believe any of these motherfuckers at this point. This is completely ridiculous. And then for here to have it come out in the middle of the night that we think chemical weapons were used. And it's coming from the Nazi battalion. Since when did we start trusting Nazis? God. Let's go back to the other one and see what they have to say. Russian chemical weapons in Ukraine could see NATO troops deployed. And of course, this is coming from what? Boris Johnson? The UK's Undersecretary for the Armed Forces, James Happy? Heapy. Yappy? He's freaking English and I can't even pronounce it. What kind of sense does that make? Has revealed that all possible options are on the table in terms of how the West might respond if it is confirmed Russia used chemical weapons in Ukraine. He did not confirm what kind of reaction it would prompt, but said it could certainly be effective. So not sanctions. Definitely, if it's going to be effective, it's not going to be sanctions. There's real value in some ambiguity, the minister said. Absolutely, all options are on the table if Russia has used chemical weapons in Ukraine, and sending troops cannot be ruled out. Armed Forces Minister James says, oh my God. Talking to BBC Radio, he said the reaction could take place outside of NATO involvement. So the UK might operate on their own. You go ahead and do that. Because, God, what did Bush call it? The coalition of the willing? Yeah, okay, UK. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss also vowed to hold Putin and his regime accountable if reports that Russian troops used chemical weapons in their latest attack in Mariupol are verified. Reports that Russian forces may have used chemical agents in the attack on the people of Mariupol are working urgently with partners to verify details. Any use of such weapons would be a callous escalation in this conflict, and we will hold Putin and his regime accountable. Notice they didn't bitch that much when Russian rockets hit a train station with a bunch of civilians. Anybody? Does any? That was like a 5-minute segment, a short little clip where they were like, hey, all these people were killed, including women and children, with these rocket attacks. And then they're like, on to the next thing. And a bunch of Nazis have some. A Nazi battalion gets gassed. It almost sounds like a joke that you would hear in a Jewish comedy club. I mean, come on. It's and they're throwing a fit about this. What the hell? Nazi battalion was attacked by chemical agents. How dare they? Don't they know it's a German thing? Uh, Reports that Russian forces may have used chemical agents in an attack on the people of Mariupol are working urgently. What? So you're going to show the same tweet that you just quoted. That's awesome. The UK government has confirmed it is working with allies to verify. And again, you're quoting the same Newsweek figures. Leader of Ukraine's Azov volunteer regiment, Andriy Bilitsky, said that the three people in Mariupol had suffered poisoning by warfare chemicals, but without catastrophic consequences. Three people. Okay, that sounds like a really crappy way of using chemical agents. I mean, how many people were these three guys killing that you would have to use chemical agents? I'm leaning way hard over into the bullshit realm of this either didn't happen or they're risking three guys in order to escalate stuff in your favor. Not something out of the norm with Ukrainians or Russians. So, yeah, I don't see the whole point of using a drone to spray some aerosol on three dudes. The claims have not yet been verified, and officials in Mariupol are waiting for the official information from Ukraine's military on the reports. The city's mayor also reported that over 10,000 civilians have died so far since the Russians invaded Ukraine. But we're worried about three Nazi dudes getting sprayed by a drone. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you, Newsweek, for your poorly written, crappy article. And let's see here. There was one other thing that I did see. Oh, yeah. This is the last bit of news. Taiwan's military releases war survival guide for civilians amid China tensions. Didn't Poland just do this too? Yeah, and this is from Sky News, where at least they still have news outlets that are willing to piss off their own government. Sounds like something we've seen in Syria with chemical attacks. Exactly. Yeah. And of course the UK is falling for it. It's yeah, so getting back to the survival guide, the guide uses comic strips and pictures with tips to survive a military attack, such as how to distinguish air raid sirens and ways to shelter from missiles. Wow. I don't have any books like that. China has never renounced the use of force to bring Taiwan under its control and has stepped up military activities nearby in the past 2 years to press it into accepting its sovereignty claims. Um, Taiwan's guide sets out how to find bomb shelters via smartphone apps, water and food supplies, as well as tips for preparing emergency first aid kits. Yeah, so it looks like Taiwan pretty much knows what's coming. And we're providing information on how civilians should react in a military crisis and possible disasters to come. That would enable safety preparedness and help people to survive, he said, adding that it would be further updated with localized information on the sites of shelters, hospitals, and shops for daily needs. Planning for the handbook predates the war in Ukraine, and Taiwan has not reported any sign of any imminent invasion, but the island nation has raised its alert level in recent weeks. Yeah. I I mean, granted, the book was probably odds are it was being produced before all this stuff started happening. But it's just weird that they would come out with a book very similar to what Poland just did. So if there's any questions, any comments, put them in the comment in the chat. Because that's about all I have for news for today. I am sore and had a lot of work that I did outside yesterday, and I still have to go back out there today. So a bunch of stuff to do around the house and get that done before I have to pick up the kid, and that leaves me about 3 hours. So anyways, this might be one of the shorter episodes of the collapse experiment. Might have another video out later today. Depends on what I get done. And if no one has any questions or comments, keep on typing.